Welcome everybody. Today I'd like to talk about the Portuguese Gambit, which is definitely a crazy gambit. It's one of the craziest gambits that I know of in all of chess. So it's definitely one you want to be aware of, and you especially don't want to be seeing this gambit for the first time if you're playing against it. We're going to go over what it is, how to refute it, and then at the end I'm going to show a game where I played against the Portuguese Gambit. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get started right away. The Portuguese Gambit comes out of the modern Scandinavian, so it starts with e4, d5, the Scandinavian defense, e takes d5, and now not queen takes d5, but instead knight to f6. This is the modern Scandinavian defense. And white has a lot of different options they can do here for their third move. Any of these blue moves here are playable, but I personally think the best move is just d4, just grabbing more center space, trying to control the center as best as possible, and simply giving back this pawn here on d5. The main line continues knight takes d5, and now we can play c4, kick this knight away. There is this trap line where black plays knight b4, and it looks like white can win a piece with queen to a4, but this is actually a really tricky opening trap, and white actually can't win a piece here. It's a really deep and super tricky line. We might go over it on a later day, but just know that queen a4 is no good. You don't actually win a piece. Just play a3 and you're actually going to have a really big advantage with white after a3. Stockfish already gives +1 in this position. Right, but if black doesn't play knight b4, they'll just play knight b6. You'll play a middle game. White has a really nice center and you'll continue the game from here. Before we look at the Portuguese Gambit, I just want to go over this move in this position for white, which is c4. And personally, I don't think this is a very good move because black's going to play either c6 or e6, and you're going to have to take if you don't want to lose the pawn anyway. And now you have this really massive hole on d4, which is going to be a huge weakness in your position as white. And black already has some really nice development. So personally, I wouldn't go into this. There are some people who have tried it, but you can see already here, the win rate for black is really good just in the Lichess database. So personally, I wouldn't go into this. And if you are going to go into this, then you should really make sure that you know what you're doing. All right, let's take a look at the Portuguese Gambit now. In this position, I would recommend to play d4, and we saw that the main line continues knight takes d5, but the Portuguese Gambit actually starts with bishop g4. And at first, this just looks like a really bad move, because it looks like white is going to be able to play f3, and then once the bishop moves, they can play c4, and white's going to have this really massive center, and they're going to be up a pawn. They're going to be able to maintain the massive center and have a really good game. So it just looks like a terrible blunder at first. But let's see what happens if white does try to go for this. So white will play f3, black plays bishop f5, and now we go for c4. And here, black is actually going to play e6, so sacrificing another pawn. And you might think, okay, after d takes e6, you might think the bishop is going to capture or, you know, whatever. But here, black actually sacrifices another pawn with knight c6. And it looks so crazy for black, because black has sacrificed 3 pawns now, 3 center pawns, and they're giving up castling rights. And it looks like white is going to be totally fine because they're going to be able to castle in only 3 moves. Like white has a massive center, which is going to help mitigate the attack, and they're going to be able to castle in only 3 moves. Bishop d3, knight e2, and they're blocking the e file, and then castles, and it looks like white is going to be super safe. So the first time you see this gambit, it just looks absolutely insane, which is one of the reasons why it's so dangerous. The first time I saw this gambit, I actually fell into it, and I thought my opponent was super crazy, and I proceeded to get demolished in only a couple more moves. So of course, the most natural move is e takes f7, and simply king takes f7. And now white's going to try to castle as quickly as possible, so of course they're going to play bishop d3. But here, it's very easy to forget that black can actually bring 2 more pieces into the attack with check, starting with bishop b4 check, and after knight to c3, now rook to e8 check, and after knight to e2, picking up this pawn on d4, pressuring the e file, and here if white castles, to try to relieve the pressure, they're just going to lose straight away. Bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, and now knight takes e2 check. White is losing the queen. Another example line would be, hey, white sees that if they castle, they lose to bishop takes d3, so let's take the bishop first. Bishop takes f5. Well, now black plays knight takes e2. Anyway, we can't really recapture this, so let's trade queens first, and now we can play king f2. get out of any discovered attacks, but unfortunately, black does have the option to win a pawn here on c3. They'll be up a pawn, But even better for black is bishop c5 check, and after king to f1, they win a whole piece. Knight takes c3. There's no time to recapture because rook d1 is actually a checkmate threat. So white is completely lost here. One other move that has been tried in this position is pawn to d5. So just trying to keep your d pawn solid, expand in the center, and hit black's knight. Well, black is going to continue here with knight to b4. So threatening a fork, we must defend against this. Knight to a3. And unfortunately here, now black can play bishop c5, and black's rook is coming to the e file, and white is never going to be able to castle. You can really see the power of black's pieces, and it doesn't really matter that their king is on f7 because white has no pieces to attack the king. An example continuation could go bishop e2, rook to e8, and king to f1, and you can already see here in the database that black's win rate is very, very high in these positions. So it's a very pleasant position for black, even though white is up 2 pawns. So that's really what black is going for when they play the Portuguese Gambit. So what's the best way to deal with the Portuguese Gambit? Well, there's 2 ways. The first way I like to call the safe refutation because it's not actually the best way to play against the Gambit, but it diffuses the position. It gets to an equal middle game where you're not going to fall into any of black's opening traps. And it's very simple, very easy. Simply after e4, d5, e takes d5, knight to f6, you continue with d4, and now if black plays bishop to g4, we simply play bishop to e2. Bishop takes e2 is forced, otherwise white is going to be up a pawn with c4. Here you can actually take with either piece. Queen takes e2 is the very slight preference among masters and stockfish, so I've put that as the main line here. And after knight to f3, you go into this equal middle game with equal material and definitely chances for both sides, but you're definitely not going to fall into any opening traps in this game. And that's it. That's the safe refutation. If you don't want to worry about anything, if you don't want to play a sharp game, you can decide to play this and you'll have a good time. The second way to refute the Portuguese Gambit, it's a little bit more accurate, but it's definitely going to be much sharper as well. So if you like really sharp or tactical games, or if you just want to risk having a bigger advantage, then this is definitely the way that you want to play it. And this is what I play as well. We have our line, the Portuguese Gambit, e4, d5, e takes d5, knight to f6, d4, and bishop g4. And at first, it's almost going to look like we are going to go into the Portuguese Gambit. We're going to start with f3. Black's going to play bishop to f5, but instead of playing c4 here, we're actually going to play pawn to g4. Black will back their bishop up to g6. And here, we are going to hold on to our pawn with c4. Now you have to be really careful here because black is going to continue with either e6 or c6. And you cannot take either of those pawns because if you do, you're basically giving black exactly what they want. You're going to get into a position very similar to the main line, and it's going to be very unpleasant. So just as an example, if black plays e6, and if you do take this pawn, simply knight c6, e takes f7, and king takes f7. And we can see this is a very, very similar position to the main line, which we looked at, which was not good for white at all. And you can see the win rates in the Lichess database correlate with that. Black is winning most of the time. So after black plays either e6 or c6, you don't want to take that. You're simply going to defend your pawn again with knight c3. And it looks like kind of a bad move at first because it looks like you're just giving yourself these super weak double isolated pawns by allowing black to take. But after black takes with e takes d5, we're actually not going to take back straight away. We're going to play g5, and now everything totally makes sense because this knight is kicked away, and we're going to be able to recapture the pawn on d5 and not have double isolated pawns, and we'll be up a pawn. So it's going to be fantastic. Black has chosen 2 spots to try to move this knight. Let's first take a look at knight to h5. Now, it'll be very tempting to capture this pawn because you have a fantastic knight, a fantastic center. But here, white can actually just completely win a piece with pawn to f4. And the threat is bishop to e2, and the knight is trapped. And there's actually no way to stop this threat. Well, actually, one way to stop this threat would be to play h6, and then if you play bishop to e2, black could defend with h takes g5. But bishop to e2 isn't the only threat in the position. For example, if black tries h6, we could simply play f5, and this is deflection from the bishop. We're going to pick up the knight anyway. So we actually have 2 pretty big threats in the position, which are f5 and bishop to e2, and black cannot stop both of them. So let's say that black captures this pawn on c4. We're going to play bishop to e2, and queen to e7 is no problem. We simply play king to f1. White is actually going to be up a full piece here, and Stockfish evaluates this position as plus 1.8 for white. It's not super simple because white is definitely going to have some long-term king safety problems, but being up a piece, it should still definitely be winning for white. The other choice for black in this position is knight f to d7, and this is definitely much less ambitious for black. We're simply going to play knight takes d5, knight c6, bishop f4, bishop d6 is going to be forced, bishop takes d6, c takes d6, and h4 to defend the g5 pawn. White is simply going to be up a pawn here. Black has this big weakness on d6. White has a massive center. Really, the only thing that white doesn't have is they're going to have, once again, long-term king safety problems. But the extra material and extra space should be enough to offset this. Although, once again, this is going to be a pretty sharp game. So if this is not your style, then you might want to consider playing the safe Refutation instead. And that's it. That's really all you need to know about this really crazy gambit, the Portuguese Gambit. I actually played a game where my opponent played the Portuguese Gambit. I played it last night on stream, and it actually inspired me to refresh my knowledge and review the theory on the Portuguese Gambit. You can see in the game, I actually forgot the theory a little bit. So without further ado, you guys can take a look at that game. Enjoy. We've got at least, there's 5 minutes left until the next game. Okay. That means we have time for a 3-0 game. I haven't played a blitz game in a while. A long time. So we very well might lose this, but good luck. Good luck to Dabo 5000. We've got this is the Portuguese Gambit. You're not gonna fool me with the Portuguese Gambit, dude. Can't get me, yo. E6, knight c3. Takes h4 or g5. Is it g5? Not getting me with the Portuguese Gambit. I was actually planning on making a video about this gambit. Yeah, g5, knight d7 or knight h5 also works. I think we're supposed to take here. Yeah, and I think this position is like +1 for white. It's obviously still very tricky, though. Do you win a piece? I think you maybe win a piece in this line. But I can't remember. We're up a pawn, which is not bad. Check. Got this. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Whoa. Oh my goodness. Check. We've got the en passant move, if he plays it. If he allows us to play it. Yeah, that doesn't seem like a very good move to me. Doesn't seem like a very good move. Oh my goodness. Move faster. Okay. Should be good. Maybe. King d7, I feel like was very likely a bad move. Wow. Wow.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Oh no, my time. I have no time left. How did I end up down a piece? This is so sad. Oh no, my pawn. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Your game started. Thank you for telling me. I realized. Not only we lost the blitz game, we also lost the rapid game by forfeit.